Thank you very much. I think it seems like we will be moving from left to right today. I would like to give the floor to the distinguished representative of India, former Power Secretary Anil Razdan. India is just one of those countries which is quickly developing in spite of the crisis. I think this year the growth was 6%, more than 6%.
That's right.
And next year I think it will be
6.5.
6.5%. So I think you have a lot of interesting things to tell our audience.
Thank you. Well, at the beginning, I think it should be clear to us from what we've been discussing since yesterday evening that the debate about development issues must center around universal human-centric development and not mere development, whether capitalist or socialist or anything. The center is human-centric development. For any sustainable development, in my view, there are 4 E's that go hand in hand. One is energy, the other is equity, environment, and efficiency. And energy, which is a prime mover of development and poverty alleviation, has to be available, affordable, reliable, and sustainable. Surprisingly, a quote from Mahatma Gandhi, the founder of my nation, comes in quite relevant. He said, "The earth has enough resources to meet people's needs, but will never have enough to satisfy people's greed." Energy growth in the time frame of 2006 to 2030 is expected to be in the region of about 1.8% annually. Luckily, energy efficiency will also show an improvement, I think, of 1.8%. And also a positive side is that the developing countries are doing better than some of the developed countries in this respect. However, the moot question, in my view, for governance is going to be, will energy drive the environment or will environment determine energy use? Like any crisis, I think the present crisis has come out of sheer recklessness and indiscretion by the developed world over the years. Maybe out of ignorance, because everything was going hunky-dory till about the 1990s. But coming back to development, I would say the key concerns for developing countries like India and a number of emerging economies, I would say the new definition of emerging economies, not necessarily what the IEA has put across, is there is limited and skewed energy access for many people in the world still. The supply of easily accessible fossil fuel is becoming more scarce. Its distribution is skewed. Energy security and political risks are looming large. Oil is mostly located in a volatile area. And then there is the stark image of climate change. The per capita consumption of energy, as you all know, is very highly skewed. In fact, the factor differential is about 1:20 between the developing world and the developed world, the best countries in the developed world. In India, you'll be surprised to know that still there are 400 million people who still live without electricity. The government has come forth with a plan to give 90% grant to those state constituents who wish to take electricity to every home. This is particularly true of rural areas. In governance, I would say, for any system to be just, it must be equitable and even-handed to the rich and poor alike. This means to nations as well as to constituents within a country. If we do not take energy to the have-nots, it is a sure recipe for unrest and violence, and will make democratic governance, in my view, irrelevant. Already, there are pockets in India, which are hitherto tribal pockets, where we thought that let people live the way they were living, but today they're not acceptable. It's not acceptable to them. They say we want electricity, we want communications, we want modern facilities. Energy source, in my view, is more of an option of availability and affordability than a choice, just as food or shelter, particularly for the poorer nations. The reserve to production ratios are roughly, as you all probably know, coal is about 120 years, natural gas is 60 years, oil is about 50 years. Coal happens to be more evenly distributed across the globe, and there are good resources in developing countries, hence a larger use of coal. Oil is dominant in the Middle East, and there are no mega discoveries in the last 2 decades. Natural gas is a little less skewed, but there are constraints of pipelines and LNG transportation costs. In sum and substance, today, natural gas is a fuel for the rich. Now, as I mentioned, all seemed to be hunky-dory till about the 1990s, when the rich continued to bathe and wallow in energy. The poor remained without it, and nobody was bothered. Then there were concerns of climate change, which showed up at the UNFCCC in 1992, and the specter of global warming came up.